Is this a crisis averted? Well, second crisis averted at least. In the US Congress, Republican and Democratic negotiators say they have reached an agreement to avoid another partial shutdown of the government. That's an agreement in principle, which does still need President Trump's sign-off. Key to the deal is the delivery of some cash for a border wall between the US and Mexico, though not nearly as much as Mr. Trump had demanded. News of the deal emerged just as he was addressing a political rally in the border town of El Paso, Texas. Gary O'Donoghue is there.
The slogan used to say, "Build the wall." Now it's changed to "Finish the wall." The president, all too aware his supporters need to see progress on his biggest promise. But there was no change in the other key messages about crime and illegal immigrants.
In the last 2 years alone, ICE officers have made listen to these numbers, 266,000 arrests of criminal aliens, including those charged or convicted of approximately 100,000 assaults, 40,000 larcenies, 30,000 sex crimes, 25,000 burglaries, 12,000 vehicle thefts, 11,000 robberies, 4,000 kidnappings, and 4,000 murders.
Another message that stayed the same was the constant attack on the media.
That's where the collusion is, with the Democrats and with Russia and with others. And by the way, there's also collusion between the Democrats and the fake news right here. And they know it better than anybody.
During his speech, my cameraman, Ron Skeens, was attacked by someone who got into the media area, shouting obscenities.
You all right?
Moments later, the president seemed to acknowledge what had happened.
Thank you.
At a rival rally less than a mile away, a possible presidential hopeful and darling of the Democrats was hitting the president hard on the wall.
With the eyes of the country upon us, all of us together are going to make our stand. Here, in one of the safest cities in the United States of America. Safe, not because of walls, but in spite of walls.
In Washington, negotiators said they'd reached a tentative deal to avoid another government shutdown next Friday. Reports say it goes nowhere near the amount of money the president wanted, though.
This was billed as a speech about the wall, and with the deal in DC, the president will get some more money to do that, even if it's only a quarter of what he asked for. But this was as much about the beginning of the next general election campaign. And if our experience is anything to go by tonight, that will be hostile, divisive, and ill-tempered, just like the last one. Gary O'Donoghue, BBC News, El Paso.
The full details of the deal have yet to be released, but we do know President Trump had been asking for $5.7 billion. The deal is thought to be much less. Aides familiar with the negotiations saying $1.4 billion has been agreed. That would allow for 89 kilometres of physical barrier, explicitly not a concrete border wall. Well, Republican Senator Richard Shelby suggested the stalemate has been broken.
On the Homeland Security and the other 6 bills, our staffs are going to be working feverishly to put all the particulars together, and that's all we can tell you now. We're not getting into numbers and everything, but it's something that is a product of all of us' work, and we believe if this becomes law, of course it will open the government.
Well, let's talk now with Dr. Lindsay Newman. She's head of North America Political Risk at the business consultants IHS Markit. Dr. Newman, it is quite rare for us to be hearing something about a deal being struck rather than blame for the fact it hasn't happened again.
Absolutely. So what we saw develop overnight is both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, working together to really avoid a next government shutdown at the end of this week. It's bipartisanship with both sides finding flexibility on sticking points that we hadn't seen. For the Democrats, they've waived this idea around cap on detention beds, and for Republicans, they got comfortable with this $1.4 billion number for a physical offense at the border.
They got comfortable. That's Republicans in the Senate. We have seen, I think, just before Christmas, a case where Republicans in the Senate were happy with the deal. President Trump went, I'm not signing that.
Sure. So, as you rightfully say, the details of this deal have yet to be announced. We're waiting for the text. But there's 1.4 for a physical barrier and another 1.7 for border security. That includes technology and so forth. So that amounts to about $3 billion that Trump is getting just in this deal alone. And it allows him to energize his base, keep this issue of now finishing the wall, no longer building the wall, out, as he looks to 2020.
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? Behind Gary there, you could see that was the slogan, finish the wall.
Absolutely.
And the president is very good at reframing the situation. So perhaps he'll be happy to take this as a deal.
Oh, absolutely. And, it will allow him even to look back to his infrastructure plan. That's something we're keeping an eye on. He wants to see that infrastructure plan move forward. Maybe now we'll see with appropriation for wall funding. And this bipartisanship that we're beginning to see, maybe that lays the groundwork for an infrastructure deal, as well as for other policy matters such as drug pricing and passage of the U.S., Mexico, Canada trade deal. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but this bipartisanship is really the key takeaway from what we're seeing overnight.
And actually, I was in the States during the midterm election campaigns, and Democrats and Republicans alike were both out there talking about things like infrastructure, saying we know what voters want is, the potholes in the roads and the bridges being rebuilt. They don't want this constant warfare.
No, absolutely. Both sides of the aisle, Democrats have a plan for infrastructure. It's just a matter of who's going to fund that plan, because Trump's plan looks for private funding, state level funding, and public-private partnerships, while the Democrats want to see much more federal level funding. But there is common cause, and so it's a matter of being able to continue this negotiating spirit in Congress. But again, we have to keep in mind what was announced was a deal in principle. This still needs to get through both houses of Congress, and then Trump needs to sign the deal.
Yeah, you're right. There are the caveats there. But interestingly, if it is the start of some way of working together, you then think, well, we are getting into US election season, even though the elections are November 2020. Can the two sides work together in such a way that they can both claim credit? Because that's what they're looking for.
Well, absolutely. Both sides are looking to spin this as a win for themselves. The real winner seems to be Congress, though. They've shown that they can work together vis-a-vis the executive. Trump is now not most likely going to have to declare a national emergency, which was unpopular even within his own party. So he's going to not need to take that specific executive action, because it looks like the legislative branch is going to be able to shepherd through some sort of deal to avert the shutdown.
Well, Dr. Lindsay Newman, thanks so much for coming on set and talking to us about this and telling us what to watch out for as well in future. Just going to finish with a story.